Hey, hello, and welcome to another episode of the MEN1 Empower podcast. I have today with me Stella. Hi, Stella.
Hello, very
It is
happy to be here.
oh, thank you. It's lovely to have you here. And yeah, Stella and I are going to be having a bit of a discussion conversation like we always do on these episodes. And I'm going to jump in pretty soon and ask Stella if she will very kindly, in as many or as few words as you like, talk us through your journey so far with MEN1 and your health and where it's brought you to now.
Right, so I will start with how my family history has gone because I'm originally from Greece, as you may understand from my very weird accent. So I'm originally from Greece. MEN1 is obviously a little bit rare and difficult to diagnose sometimes. So the way that it happened with me was that my maternal grandmother was diagnosed with it. And then, I'm sorry. My grandmother was diagnosed with it, and then my uncle and father were diagnosed with it as well. And I knew that I had it because they were diagnosed with it in Greece, but I didn't get officially diagnosed until I came to the UK. So I came to the UK 2017, knew that I had it. I decided that I'm going to go through the NHS to get the official diagnosis because I knew that I was getting to this critical age where symptoms are starting catching up. So I wanted to get an official diagnosis and then get on the system to be able to have treatments and stuff if needed. So it was pretty straightforward in terms of like symptoms and stuff. My uncle they didn't catch it early. They weren't sure about what it was. So he ended up losing a kidney because of it. But my dad got it quite early. He had his parathyroid surgeries and stuff. And because I already knew what it was and I was quite young when I started having symptoms, it was easy for me to get treatment for it. So yeah, I've been diagnosed since 2018. I literally had my parathyroid surgery a month ago, a little bit over a month ago. Absolutely recommend it. Literally changed my energy levels like nothing else. So I used to have high calcium since maybe 2015, 2014, which was getting progressively a little bit worse. I didn't exhibit any other symptoms apart from a tiny cyst on the pancreas that we think it's just a cyst, really, nothing relevant. Um, but I didn't realize as the symptoms were getting worse, I didn't realize that my energy levels were going down. So like I ended up having quite high calcium, but I didn't really think that it was impacting myself or my activities or my life any until I had the surgery and everything changed basically. So for 3 years, I was struggling with really low energy, really bad mood swings, but nothing else really. And I just thought it was life. Then I had my surgery and I realized it was not life. It was just calcium being too high and my body not being able to handle it very well. So um, yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
Wow, it's a really interesting story. I wonder, can you talk a little bit about and I hope this doesn't throw you off because I didn't mention this to you before. I'm really interested because you're not the first patient I've talked to who's had experience kind of with healthcare in another country as well as in the UK under the NHS. What,
Mhm.
if any, are the differences or the similarities?
So because I wasn't diagnosed in Greece, I'm not sure exactly how they go through the procedure there. I know that until I got diagnosed here and they identified exactly the gene that I had, uh, my dad, for example, does not know what gene is wrong with him, although he has gotten the diagnosis. So he's not gone through the genetic side because it's a bit difficult to find the gene if you don't know what to look for. So when I was in Greece, I was lucky because due to my studies and my job, I was already working at the hospital at the time I was doing my internship. So when my mom came and said, "Your dad has been diagnosed with that, chances are you may have it too," I immediately started reading all about it and stuff. So I went to the hospital that I was working on, and I just asked the doctors, look, I may have that. And we ran some tests. So I was literally running my own samples at the time because I was in the biochemistry department. So I could handle my own samples and stuff. It was really cool. And I saw that I had really high calcium. I went to the endocrinologist. They said, you want to do the urine, the 24 urine one? That was high as well. So they were like, okay, you pretty much have it, but they didn't tell me to go through the diagnosis. So in Greece, the healthcare system is, I don't think it is bad. I think that much like in the UK, you have pretty amazing people working on it, but it's underfunded, just like all countries. And sometimes it's not as functional in the sense that like you have such a high load of patients that you don't really know where to start from. But I would say that the diagnosis in Greece is a little bit, maybe I'd say more straightforward, I would say, because I've noticed that in the NHS, in order to actually get treatment for something that you have or to discover that you have something is a bit difficult. You have to persuade the doctor that something's wrong with you. You have to persuade them that, look, I am exercising, I'm doing yoga, and I'm eating well, and I'm still having like all these troubles. Can you help? And they'll tell you, have you tried, I don't know, herbal remedy or something? And I'll be like, no, there's something wrong there. So I found it a bit difficult in the NHS to navigate, to persuade people that something's wrong. And I know that it's not only me. I know that it is other people as well, like my partner, friends of mine that have found it a little bit difficult. Unfortunately, disproportionately women. And I don't want to go more on that because like we're going to be talking for hours. But so I think in Greece, it's a bit easier to get help for something because the doctor immediately, as you go there, they're going to say, okay, cool, bloods, biochemistry, ultrasounds, do you need MRI? Like they're gonna be on it, you know what I mean? They're gonna search you top to bottom from it, and something's gonna pop up. While here you go like, okay, have your bloods. 2 weeks later, I'm not sure. Have an ultrasound. 3 months later, try to see a specialist. 4 months later, and it's like years pass, and you're like, okay, I still don't have an answer for this.
It's really interesting hearing, the differences between the two, and as you say, the quality of care not necessarily being too different over in Greece, but maybe the difference being that there isn't quite so much pestering that has to be done.
I'd say, yeah, I'd say it's a little bit, maybe they're following different protocols, if that makes sense. I think the diagnostic protocols are the same, but the way that the doctors go up on them, they're like a little bit quicker and like, okay, you're gonna have all these examinations, all these tests, while here they're like, okay, have this one, then wait for a bit, have another one, and it's kind of like, yeah, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not the first person who's told me that in terms of how things can happen in other systems in Europe. So, very interestingly, you said you have some background in biochemistry and that you got to handle your own samples, which I think is
I do.
absolutely just so cool. I would love that. I'd love to be that close with my own with my own blood tests and everything. So, with your background in biochemistry, and then I know you work in sort of gene research and cell therapy and all that sort of thing now. What is it, if anything, that like you've learned in your work that has to do, does any of that have to do with MEN1 or rare cancer or anything like that? Is there anything that you've been able to bring from your work into the way you handle your health now?
Yeah, so on my background, I'm not a biochemist, I'm a biomedical scientist. I specialize in hematology. I have a big interest in neurology and disease and stuff like that. And I have my master's on stem cells in genetic medicine from the University of Sheffield here. That's why I came here. I would say that working, and as I said, I work in cell and gene therapy field. So I'm working for a company that manufactures CAR T cell therapy. So that is a novel cell therapy for cancer where you utilize as a patient your own T lymphocytes to fight your own cancer. So we take your lymphocytes, manipulate them, put them back in you, very simple words, and it fights your cancer for you. Yeah, it's quite cool. And it is emerging generally. It's we've got some really good results from trials and stuff. Anyway, what has this given me? I think it has given me a really good perspective on what cancer is. I think that might sound very broad, but like I think a lot of people even today, cancer is a little bit of a taboo topic. It's something that happens to somebody else, or they kind of know somebody and it's like the worst thing that can happen to you, and or it's kind of like rare, or oh my God, what a tragedy. And absolutely, like I'm not gonna say that cancer is easy. I'm not gonna say that cancer is like a walk in the park at all. But nowadays, unfortunately, for many reasons, environmental, personal, whatever, we do tend to have like many cancer occurrences. Might be way of life, might be just genetic predisposition, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But we do tend to have like quite a lot of cancer going on, let's say. And I think it is important to realize that cancer is at this point something that kind of happens to a lot of people will be seeing that in their families. A lot of people may see it to themselves. And it is something that we have ways to fight and we have ways to deal with. And it is not a death sentence. In a lot of cases for cancer, it is not a death sentence, it's just another health issue that you have to deal with. And I think people need to remember that not all cancers. Can you die from cancer? Absolutely, yes. But not all cancers are just, that we can't do anything about it. And as medicine progresses, cancer patients, even cancer patients with really, really, really bad outlooks, because in the job that I do, our cancer patients are people who have relapsed, who have refractory conditions, who don't have any other hope. We're clinical trials, right? We're going to take people who everything else that they've tried has failed, and they're going to come to us to see if this new novel drug might help them. And it does help them. So even on these cases, there is that light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that's the first thing that this job has given me, is that cancer is part of life. It is absolutely horrible for the people who get it, for their families, for everybody who's around them. It's a very, very difficult situation, but it is not something that you can't go through it and win at the end. And something else that has given me is something very important. The ability to do my own research, the ability to have tools, to trust tools and to trust in certain scientific pathways to give me the knowledge that I need to realize what is, I wouldn't say right or wrong, but like to realize which sources are trustworthy, which sources might not be as trustworthy, and to be able to like reach a conclusion for something, and knowing where to search for things.
That's amazing. Do you think that what you've taken from the research and the studying and the work that you do, obviously you come across as incredibly, knowledgeable and well-read. Do you think that applies to
Absolutely not.
I can tell you do to me anyway. And I was wondering, does that apply? Obviously, you've had the experience in your health. Do you think that applies to other areas of your life as well? Do you think you can take that out into other
Oh yeah,
areas and use
absolutely,
that?
absolutely. I think that thing. I don't know. I think as you go through life, you definitely have situations where you're like, I have no idea how to do that. So having the knowledge and the know-how to even Google it, you know what I mean? You know, how many times have you met somebody that says, "Oh, I don't know how to do this thing," and they're like, "Well, have you Googled it?" And they're like, "Oh no." So it's like from changing a tire to cooking that meal that you really want to understanding your condition better, knowing how to research stuff and to be unbiased in that research that you're going to do, because people are hopeful by nature, and a lot of the time we want to believe what we want to believe. We try to ignore evidence of one thing in favor of evidence for what suits with our personal preferences. So I think being able in your life generally to be a little bit, I don't want to say data driven, because life is not just data, right? I don't want to make it like, oh, we're just all robots going around. But being able to like have a clear head and say, okay, I have a tough situation, and after I've cried and after I've despaired, I kind of collect myself and are able to, okay, this is the picture. What can I see? What can I derive from it? What is the best thing that I could do given my circumstances? And trust in the process that I've made the right choice, because I have facts for it, I have data for it. I think that definitely can be generalized in every part of life. And I'm in no way a guru or a magician that like their life is perfect. I don't want to like people hearing that and being like, oh my God, she must have like such an ordered life, because my life is a chaos. I like it, but it's chaotic sometimes. Um, but I think, yeah, definitely the ability to have a clear head, and be a little bit data driven sometimes is something that can be applied to general life. Yeah.
That's amazing. So if, you know, if someone were very newly diagnosed, or perhaps not newly diagnosed, they just have the condition and, you know, they feel lacking in information, or yeah, they just want to know more. Would you recommend, you know, reading up on it? Because there's not a lot of stuff out there, and that's, well, put it this way, there's a lot of research and evidence out there for a rare condition, MEN1. Not a lot of it is very easy to digest, easy to understand. There's a lot of jargon and everything. You know, would you say to people, go and read it anyway? Like, go and, you know, just go and kind of swat up and make sure that you know this data? Or do you think there's a bit of a knack to it?
I am definitely for doing your own research. However, and there's a big like however there. When you're doing your own research, you need to be aware of your own limitations and your own knowledge. And without like not recognizing that, okay, I am not an expert on this subject, therefore I can't be expected to know all these things. So I think much like when you're starting to learn about a new, I don't know, board game or computer game or anything new, really, even at your own job, a new skill or anything, you have to start with the idea that, hey, I don't really know much stuff. So I have to start from a low level. So for somebody who was just recently diagnosed, or like not recently, but they just don't know a lot and they want to start picking up some stuff, places like the NHS websites or the NIH, I think it is, National Health websites, or the AMENT website, Macmillan Cancer Support, I think they had a very easily and digestible information page about MEN1. So starting from places where that medicinal jargon is not going to get to you immediately, and you're not going to encounter a lot of words that are either going to throw you into a rabbit hole of Google searches about what they mean, and then discovering things that maybe are not as nice as you thought they were, or something like that. Or just getting caught in, as I said, a rabbit hole. So you don't really understand your own condition better. You just learn a lot of words and what they mean. I think that I would definitely start from like those examples of websites. Of course, there are others that have a bit of easily digestible information about what it means for you now, what it means for you in a little bit in the future, what it means for example, if you want to have children in the future and stuff like that. Since it's a genetic condition, obviously, offsprings are going to be affected by it. So I'd say that for somebody who has no idea, your doctors are there for you. If you don't have any idea, that's not something that you should be ashamed of. Not everybody can be of a medical background. We would have tons of doctors and no patients at the end of the day. So, so yeah, don't be ashamed. Ask if you don't understand something. Ask your doctors. Ask your medical health providers. Anybody who can help you, your specialists, they're all there for you to explain stuff. You don't need to be an expert. On the other hand, a lot of people would like to know a little bit more. And to those people, I'd say that once they reach a level where they have a really, really good understanding of their condition and of the biology that surrounds their condition, they could expand definitely through some scientific articles. I would start from reviews. Reviews are articles that kind of sum up the knowledge that we have up to this point. So if a review is 2021, it has kind of sum up knowledge that we have up to 2021. So this is a good place to start. It's not like a trial, it's not an experiment, it's just extra information that we have on the condition. And peer-reviewed journals, also good sources. But yeah, I think it's just the most important thing is to understand where you're coming from. What is your background knowledge? Don't swallow yourself into a massive wealth of information, because online there's a lot of stuff. And if I'm feeling sad one day and I go and Google life expectancy, I don't think I'm going to be healthier and happier at the end of the day, will I? So I won't. So it's you need to take into account how you're feeling at that particular moment, how you may be because your own outlook at this particular moment when you're reading something will influence how you view what you wrote or what you read, sorry. So if I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling bad, and I start Googling about my condition, I'm not sure if I'm gonna feel better afterwards. But if I go in it intentionally with a clear head, with the intention of learning, that I can get something out of it, I can understand myself better, I can help others around me better, then I think that's a little bit of a better outlook to start. So take into account your own background knowledge, your emotions at the moment, and the reason why you're doing this research. Don't start doing it because you're feeling bad and you want to have hope. Do it because you want to learn.
I think that's a really, really valuable piece of advice there. I think it's so easy that the kind of knee-jerk reaction is to go and Google. And I've had so many patients come back and say to me that they Googled MEN1 and Google says, I can't remember which is the website, but one of the websites says that the average life expectancy of an MEN1 patient is 50. And most of these people have been
60,
in their 40s.
65, yeah.
Is it 65? And most people have been in their 40s at this point. Which is, it's when you're very new to the condition and you don't know anything else, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, I did the same thing. But the first thing that I Googled was life expectancy. But the key thing to remember is that like life expectancy is just average data that we've had over the years for people up to now. For a very long time, MEN1 didn't have treatments. Pancreatic cancer, for example, which can happen, theoretically MEN1, right? Didn't have good treatments. It's still one of those cancers that we're trying to find something really, really good against. So obviously, if it's 2020 and you're trying to find life expectancy for a condition that the majority of data that we have and life expectancy is from generations where we didn't have adequate healthcare because in some cases we couldn't diagnose the condition. So a lot of people would die early, but we wouldn't know why. Or you would have like average life expectancy of people that got treatments on very, very late stages because they didn't know what they have. And by the time that they learned, they didn't have enough time to be treated. If you're diagnosed when you're like 15 years old, 20 years old, 30, 40 years old, you have all the life in front of you to be treated for something that you already know. If you know something, you can deal with it, right? So that average life expectancy, it sounds scary, but you need to understand where the data to provide this number come from. And they come from generations where a lot of conditions were poorly understood or poorly treated or difficult to diagnose. Nowadays, that average life expectancy is not 50 years, it's not 60, 65 years. Like my dad is 65, 70, I'm not sure. I'll ask him next time, but I think it's like 60, 67, 67. Yeah, he's had his fair share of adventures, but he's healthy, he's fine. So, not dead yet. So the point is, he didn't beat that average. It's just that average is a little bit skewed because of bad data, basically.
Of course. And as you say, it's about being aware of where the information comes from, I think, in everything in life. In everything in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. You need to understand, okay, where did this number come from? Where does this information come from?
Yeah. Stella, we have time for one more question, and I ask this to all of my guests.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't you worry. And actually, I could talk to you all day. I wish that I could. I wish I had the bandwidth, and I wish I had the cloud space for it.
Oh, you have the bandwidth. Trust me.
It's something about being in central London. I seem to have good connection. I'm blessed for that. My question that I asked all my guests is, either if they were to look back on their younger self, and perhaps not in your case because you were only diagnosed a few years ago, but if you were to look at someone or speak to someone who's only just been diagnosed and you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
I feel like I'm gonna have to preface that. I'm lucky that my own experience has been relatively mild. And my family's history shows that our condition, our case of MEN1 seems to be going relatively mild. I see a lot of people having way, way more struggles than what happens in my family. But I think that, for that reason, I'm not exactly qualified to go to somebody who's having it like way harder because they have way different struggles. So like, I don't know, 15-year-old removed their pancreas and they're thinking their future is very bleak. I can't exactly go to them and say it's fine, it's good, you know. I can't do that. But what I can say is that regardless of how much you're struggling right now, and you may have had months of struggles and you may have years of struggles, your entire life is not going to be a struggle, and your entire future is not going to be a struggle either. You will go through tough phases and you will go through better phases, but there's always going to be an ebb and flow. There's always going to be better periods, and look out for them. There's going to be worse periods, brace for them. But life is not just one continuous decline. It's going to have definitely tough moments. But even if things are like really bleak right now and you feel like there's not a lot of life in the way that this condition has been handed out to you, and there's not a lot of like room for improvement, there is room for improvement always, and there is always going to be a better day to look out for. Yeah, that I think that there's always going to be this up and down, you know. There's always going to be good times, bad times, and humans are adaptable. We can get through this.
I love that. I think that's a really lovely message to deliver, and I think that will land beautifully with lots of people. Stella, thank you so much for your time, for coming on, sharing your wisdom. I have to say, I've learned a huge amount just by sitting here with you for 20, 25 minutes. It's been amazing. And I'm sure in the future, we will love to have you back on, because yours is definitely a voice of, you have the patient experience and you have the knowledge and the expertise as well. And I think that's so valuable for, you know, people in you know, a position like this one to be able to have access to. So I can't thank you enough. And yes, I'm sure that anyone who's listening back will be very grateful as well.
Thank you very much for having me. But apologies for the bad English occasionally. But yeah, absolutely, I would love to come back again. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you very much for doing that for all the people out there that have MEN1 and are feeling all right about it, or are feeling really bad about it. And they have this voice of other people and this connection with other people, that you're not alone. There's a bunch of us. We're not as rare. We are, but not as much.
Absolutely. Not as rare as we think we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Stella.
Thank you very much.